So once again, my name is Amy Padoff, the very proud Director of Education here at Fairchild. I have with me today Dr. Carl Lewis, the Director of the Garden, and also we have Kavita Mittapalli, who is our evaluator, Daniel Bernal, who is our who works with our evaluator, and then our database designer, Luke, who's going to be joining us to talk a little bit about setting up your next experiment. Also, a little bit about how he got to where he is today. But we want to make sure that we're here to be able to answer questions for everybody. Any questions you have about your proposal feedback, any questions that you have about the database and the adding data. And we want to be able to make sure that we have any questions about your second experiment. So with that, before we get into the data portal, I wanted to see if there are any questions, anything anybody wants to share. We can, feel free to put questions in the chat. If you don't want to turn on your mic, that's fine too. Oh, and we also have Alex Eden, our graduate fellow, is on as well. So Alex, sorry, I didn't mean to miss you there. Okay. All right. All right. Carl, anything you want to add before we get started? All right, perfect. All right, so everybody knows that we have gone through, and Happy New Year to everyone. We've gone through our first trial. Some of you may have been able to finish up entering your data. Some of you may have gotten your materials late and might be still working on trying to enter your data. And we're starting into trial number 2. Everybody should have by now received your proposal feedback. If you haven't, please let us know so that we can make sure that we get that to you. So you can start your trial 2 experiment and have it done in time to hopefully be able to present at the annual Student Research Symposium, which is on April 12th this year. There will be virtual and in person. We can talk about that in more detail when we're done. And make sure that everybody has all of the information that they need to be able to move forward with their second trial. Any questions? All right. All right. All right. So without further ado, I want to turn it over to Luke, who works for an organization that we've been partnering with called Salad, and he can explain all of this to you. But we really want to be able to answer any questions. So please, if you have any questions about the data portal, how you enter data, how you can create your new experiment, that's what we're going to talk about today. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Luke.
Great. Thanks, Amy. Let me share my screen here. I'm going to go through just maybe a few slides and then we'll jump into a demo of the data portal. So given this chat with a scientist, I thought I'd give a quick background of how I got to working on plants in space research. So originally I was doing physics at Oxford. So I was my undergraduate. I left Australia. If you don't notice by my accent, it's where I'm from. It's where I am now. So I left to go do a 4-year course at Oxford. And in my 4th year, I had to, find my master's thesis, and that's where I didn't stumble across it, but I fell in love with space, and I thought, what a better project to pursue than something to do with Saturn. But maybe not a lot of people know this. The most interesting, or at least in my opinion, thing about Saturn isn't the rings, but it's actually its North Pole. And if you've ever seen a picture of Saturn, you'll see that the North Pole is actually this hexagon shape. And scientists noticed this quite a while back in the 60s, and they weren't sure if this was a persistent structure, so it stays forever, or if it was something that occurs maybe once every 5 years or 10 years. But it turns out over it's a 50, 60-year observation period that this really is a persistent structure as far as we can tell on Saturn. And it's formed from the jet stream at the top. And now Earth has a jet stream as well. It houses a lot more turbulence, so you don't get this beautiful hexagon structure forming. But my research really focused on how can we replicate this in the laboratory? Like, can we create a fluids experiment that replicates Saturn's hexagonal structure? And furthermore, could we even create multiple shapes, triangles, squares, and how do these structures arise from fluids? So this was the focus of my research. I I can show you kind of in this next slide here. You see on the left-hand side, this was an image of the experiment where we got this beautiful hexagon structure, and we dyed the fluid. This is actually a massive rotating tank, and the image is captured from above. Um, but this is kind of where I started, and then after I finished my master's, I kind of got my wits about me and decided, oh well, the plant sector is the place to be, really. And so I started building things, and that primarily with my computer. So I learned how to code only after I'd left university. I never learned how to code during university, even though we had a lot of classes on it. I just could never wrap my head around it. It was only when I really wanted to build something myself, sat down and said, all right, well, this is what I'm going to do, and took it one step at a time. And so since then, I've built a few things. One of the big projects I've worked on was building a sustainable farming AI assistant. So that helps farmers determine what they can do on their land, and this is traditional farmers, not space farmers, what they can do on their
Ooh.
land and how they can get financing for it as well. So this might be implementing contour or weirs or dams on their land, or it might be regenerative grazing strategies. And so that's still an ongoing project I'm working on. I'm really excited about. A couple other fun ones I've got is I built an autonomous drone over lockdown from scratch. That was a bit of fun. And then some digital phenotyping tools, and that's for the plant sector. I'm also an oceanographer for the Royal Australian Navy. So I'm currently finishing up some training for that at the moment. But yeah, and lastly, I work on salads. So as Amy alluded to, you can see the salad team in the bottom right-hand corner here. And this project was started primarily to build up a database of the historical spaceflight data that's been done for plants in space. And it ties in quite nicely with everything that we're working on with Growing Beyond Earth, particularly the wiki articles that we've had a chance to build. I think it's better if we go through the platform, and I'll kind of show you how that links off, because this is also in a little bit of a state of change. But if you'd like to go to saladproject.org, we have a link to both our database and the wiki articles there, but you can also access it through the Growing Beyond Earth platform as well. So I think it's probably good we jump in. And the wiki I was talking about is on the left-hand panel. If you click on wiki, you'll see the link to our space crops and plant growth systems, and this takes you off to the salad pages. I'll jump into um, the web platform now. Great. Okay, so we can see here we're on the wiki page, but and on here you've got, let's just go through a couple things. So we've got historic experiments. So this is a list of all the experiments that have been done over the past, I think we go back to 2015, it would seem. Yeah, 2015. You can search by the school, the name or the year. And if you want, you can download that historic data. We're going to find a way that we can better integrate this with the experiments going forward, but you have that available too if you need to look up some of those past experiments. Likewise, if you're interested about learning, let's say about the veggie chamber on board the ISS, you're able to click on and see, when was it operational, its design, materials, and even we've got a section down here, I believe, on the Growing Beyond Earth chamber and how it's similar or modeled around the veggie chamber. So this is quite a nice bit of reading if you want to explore the plant growth systems here. So I'm going to jump into how to create your own experiment. So on the main page, you guys would have seen that we have this new experiment button. So far, it's been clicking on the prescribed or the allocated experiments. So when you go through this step, you will first set your experiment names. It's usually a school, the year, and then maybe the trial number as well. So let's say Fairchild Test School, and we're going to do trial 3. The experiment start date. This doesn't, again, we can change everything once the experiment starts, but this is really just an expected date so that you can set the initial date for your week 1 observation and your final harvest as well. So let's say we want to start this, what's today's date? 23rd. Let's say we're going to start this experiment next week on the 30th. And experiment duration, again, this is really just to set the harvest date. You don't have to put anything in here, but if you'd like, whack in 4 weeks. Number of rows, so this should be fixed, I believe. Amy, correct me if I'm wrong here, but we're going to be going 3 by 2. Um, I don't know if you want to sneak another row in. Maybe you can do that in the future, but for now, let's keep it 3 by 2. And then finally, this is where you're going to define the variables that you're measuring. And it's important that you want to define these before you start the experiment. You don't really want to have to start defining new variables halfway through. And so it's important to look at your proposals and say, okay, well, we want to initially for the planting, what do we want to measure? Okay, so it's germination rate, number of seeds, essentially the substrate as well. Um, there's a quick way if you want to just select all the ones that we have here, you can click use default. And then we also have an alternate default as well. So you can click both of them and it selects both of them. If you want to, or if there's a variable that you'd like to add, and this is just for planting, remember, so this is just that one-off observation you do after 1 week. You can also add that in. So you want to give it a name, a unit, this is optional, and then the variable type. Are you going to be collecting a date, a number, or is it a text field? And then when you add that, you've got that under your planting. The general, as you kind of want to make your way across this. General is the ongoing time series data that you'd be collecting. As you can see here, we've got number of plants in the pot that have germinated, number of leaves, the plant height, width, and depth. And there's an option to select the units. So at the moment, we only have centimeters in here. We've got meters or millimeters in plant width, but I'd say for plant height, let's just stick with centimeters and have this use this set. And then likewise, same for harvest. What variables do you want to be measuring when you harvest? You do your final harvest. So is that edible fresh mass? And ideally, you want to be doing that in grams, I think. So you might want to change those variables there. But you just work your way across. If you don't have any variables set, and you try and create, it'll tell you, hey, we need you to create some environment variables, and you've got to select at least one. So you shouldn't be able to create the experiment unless you've set up these variables correctly. So let's say you want room temperature, chamber temperature, and room humidity. Yeah, you're able to do that. And so once you've selected those variables, hopefully I've got one of every selected, your experiment will be created. And you'll notice here there are only 2 timestamps that have been added. Week 1, which has those, sorry, this is environment. Week 1, which has those initial germination date, number of seeds, and substrate. That was your planting variable. They were your planting variables. And you have your harvest variables, which are your general ones. But also on top of that, you have your edible fresh root mass and the ones you selected for harvest. These will go yellow when the data is required. If you want to add an observation, so it's usually you want to be doing one a week. If you want to do more, you're able to do that at the moment. So if you want to add an observation, it's just about selecting the day. So let's say we want to do observation or observation 1, call it observation 1. We could call it week 2. And then we started on the 30th. So really we want week 2 will be the 13th, I believe. So if we save that, we've then got week 2 that started here, and we have all of our variables set in that. And likewise for the environment data. If you ever need to change the timestamps here, so let's say we were off by 1 day. All right, we need to do it on the February the 14th because no one is around to do that. You can go into settings, and just the same as the last time, you can just you can reset your variables and they'll update. You've also got access to all of your environment variables here. There is a feature that allows you to edit these units, but we just want to be a little bit careful of it now because it doesn't automatically update the historic data. So for instance, if you go from centimeters to meters, it's not going to update all of that data. It's still just going to keep it the same. So we're a little bit hesitant about putting that in. If you guys really want it and you need to change it, maybe that's something we can do. Everything else is pretty much the same as your prescribed experiments. The notes section is the same. The way you upload images is exactly the same. Selecting plants here, or if you prefer, going into the list arrangement and selecting them this way. You will have to define again what plant, what species that you've got in. So uh, that you'll have to do that once it's initially set up. But by and large, it's going to be, apart from the initial configuration step, it's going to be very similar to the prescribed experiment. I think I want to keep some time for questioning, so I'll probably leave it there and open up if there's any questions or comments or um, yeah,
What
both about the portal and yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Amy.
So, Luke, I got a question. So, if they are trying a different variety that we haven't tried, how would they add that?
So there's a new variety. We have to add that from the admin panel first. And so we'll have to make sure we add that in. So if there's a variety you don't, as a teacher, you're not seeing in this, I'd probably say get in touch with one of the administrators. They'll add it into this database. And Amy, I can show you how we do that. But I think Brianna knows how we're adding plants. Yeah.
That's great. So, remember, if you are trying a different variety that's not in our current list of 230 varieties, 230 plus varieties, please reach out to us through the GBE email and we can add it for you. All right, so Lisa Tay from Midland, Michigan had a few questions. Her first question is there an upper limit quota for the portal? Sometimes it took a long time for the portal to respond when uploading photos, but a few days later, the portal accepted photos smoothly. That's her first question. And then her second question is how to change the week one observation set to plant day data set.
Okay, so in terms of the first question with the data, if it is a larger image file, it will take a longer time. Probably it'll depend on your students if they're uploading it from their phone. iPhone images are just a little bit bigger than some of the other images. Samsung images are huge, so it kind of depends on what phone you're uploading and comes down to the size of the image. There was some maintenance we were doing between the 24th of December and as of 4 days ago, so or 3 days ago. So if there was anything intermittent in that period, I'd say just check again because we're adding some extra security and stuff into the platform from there. So have a go. It'd be good to get some testing. So if you've uploaded some images and you've timed how long it takes and where you are with, yeah, I'd love to see some of that information and we can get down and see how we can make it a little bit quicker. Um, the week one name, if we want to change that, so uh, again in settings, there are some things um, that are remaining fixed. So the week one is one of those things that you can't change the name for. Week two, more, you're able to, but um, just as a standardization measure, we've got week one and harvest as fixed variables or fixed timestamp names, I should say. Yeah. If it's something you really want to change, because we initially had it as planting day, but it's not actually the planting day. It's a week after the planting day that you make this observation because you have, um, for instance, you have germination date and number of seeds and substrate. So really for germination date, you need to, you know, you need to wait a little bit, I guess. So yeah.
Lisa, feel free to turn on your if you have other questions, feel free. Okay.
Yeah, it's helpful because we trying to figure out we are 1 week delayed. Once we create it, we forgot the date is wrong. So then it's kind of mess up with the sequence. Now the look show me we can change from week two. That's great news because then we can sort it out accordingly.
Yeah, so pretty much all these dates will be
That makes
you
sense.
can even
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
even change week one date. So if you want to change the date, you can do that. Yeah. So it's
So
just
yeah,
yeah.
follow-up question is will we be able to access to the current last year 2024 fall data soon? I noticed
We
we have up to the historical data up to
ah
2021-ish.
Yeah, there's going to be a gap. We can, I guess we've got it. We just haven't uploaded it yet, but yeah, we'll be able to. Amy, I guess we can sort out getting those spreadsheets across, and we'll upload those as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So at this point, when I can look at my own data, I won't be able to look at other people's data. Just for example, from the homepage, right?
yeah.
Like existing experiment. All of those I see is from Dao High, but not the other schools.
So, for instance, we're going to find a way that we can search by school a little bit easier because at the moment you've kind of got to make your way around a map to find out what the experiments are. But let's say, for instance, this school here, they've got a bunch of images. If I want to download this experiment data, I can, and I've got access to all of that data. Um,
So you need to know
so,
what school's doing the experiment that you're interested in, and then where
yeah,
the school is. So if you are, Lisa, if you are looking for data for the novel crops experiment, or people who are doing, a particular variety of, you could let us know and we could connect you so that you can go on the map and find, your kids can go on the map and find those schools and be able to download their data. Does that make sense?
That does. Okay, thank you so much.
yeah, and we'll have other ways to search in the future. This was kind of just so we could have something out there that yeah, that shows what people are doing. But yeah, the school doesn't look like it's
No,
these guys.
that's a school in Miami.
Okay.
Oh, we just,
Misplaced the pin a little bit. Yeah, okay.
yeah. The pins, they're down the road from Fairchild, so
Okay. They're
not,
not in an ocean expedition. Right.
yeah.
Right. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah. What other questions? Anybody have any other questions about the data portal? Maybe creating the new experiment, or maybe just are you having any issues with entering your data, extracting your data, anything that you have noticed that we think we should address with the data portal? Well, that's cool. Um, all right. All right, that's great. I did get a question today about the portal, and I'll have to find it because the teacher emailed me and she wasn't able to join us today, so I wasn't able to get it. So let me pull up that question while we continue. Luke, is there other things and other features that you want to share about the website that maybe teachers aren't aware of that they have access to? Because when we did the original training for the website, maybe we went quickly and maybe there are things that have changed. Anything that you want to share?
Yeah, let me bring it back up again and we can showcase. We go over a couple of things. Um, so primarily when you're in your experiment, I guess the main feature that I'm sure a lot of people have used, maybe we can turn this on. But with the image upload and the we click on say a nice thing at beach. Adding in metadata here is quite important for the image. So while it's great to take a picture of the entire experiment, and I've noticed that with a lot of the images, they're kind of a picture of the entire experiment rather than individual plants a lot of time, which is great. But if we're going to build up these standardized data sets that are really, really useful for NASA, we kind of want to get pictures of the individual plants along the way. And that's going to help a lot once we have the Raspberry Pi units in that are going to have standard imaging set up. But really, I think if you are going to be doing imaging, and maybe we'll come out with an article on best practices for imaging, but I would say that this is uh, entering this data and even the description. We are using the description as well, so it's not just a random thing. If you have got 5 plants in there, just say these are the 5 plants, or this is the bottom row set of plants. We've noticed that there's some waterlogging in the substrate. Whatever it is, adding information into these images Yes, this is a very nice picture of just on the other side of Bondi Beach. But uh, here we have it's really useful, this information that you can put in. So even after you've uploaded this image, I'd recommend going in and just getting a student, if they've gone in, taken a photo with their phone, hey, can you come in and set the timestamp at least for that time? And now that you have prescribed experiments, if you want to add, let's say you wanted to take an image during the week, right? And you want to timestamp that image. Now we're collecting that data within the image anyway. But if you really wanted to do it, add a new observation. You don't have to add any other data next to the plant. So um, let's say you wanted to add an observation. Let's do it. Let's do it today. And this is just like you can put as like an image capture. You really want to have as like, let's say date 13 or something like that. If we save that, and all these dates are out of whack because it's some random one, but if we click on one of the plants, click on day 13, um, if you add an image and you don't like having this incomplete data thing here, because really you just created this timestamp so you could link it to the image, just click skip and then it'll greet it, because I think it might have actually been Lisa. I don't know if it was some of your students or one of the testing groups. It's like they wanted a way to set the timestamp, but they couldn't stand looking at that yellow incomplete icon. So there's a way you can kind of like manually override it and say, right, we've got that. So again, just to reiterate, um, for any of the images, um, if you can, and so now I can go in. I don't have any other data attached to day 13, but I just want to link it here. Perfect. I've got that and I can save that now, and then that's day 13. So don't be scared about adding more observations. The data is all structured. It's fine. We're not going to it's not going to say that there's missing data both here or on the data tracker, which is tracking the completeness of your experiment. So as long as you just click that, you're fine with it. And likewise, I don't know if we have one for environment, but so that'll be stuck as incomplete data for now. But just for the plants, at least you'll get the green tick here when everything's completed. Does that make sense? I would say the images are probably one of the most valuable things that's being generated in it, like in terms of the data from this platform. So putting as much information as you can into the images is going to be helpful. Um, yeah.
And using the photo card with the images is going to be helpful too. So
Yes.
you can really compare, to make sure that we're consistent. So making sure that you use that photo card. And if for some reason you misplaced that photo card or something like that, let us know. But having the image of the plant with the photo card is very helpful too.
We've usually got about 50 of them floating around somewhere, and now I can't find a single one. So yeah.
Are there any questions about that? All right. Great. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Luke, for that. I think this is going to be really valuable. We're going to post this on our website, so anybody who wasn't able to join us today will be able to have the information to be able to share. If you run into any error or any issues with the database or have any questions about it, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And I know that we've gotten some questions and we were able to resolve them. Sometimes it's just as simple as not knowing exactly where to go to find what you need. So we want to make sure that this is valuable. We hope this is I mean, it's definitely valuable to us, absolutely. So we want to make sure that it's easy and for everyone to use, for sure.
Amy, is this the time when I can send the survey link?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Alex, are there any questions that come up in the email while Daniel's sending the link to the survey? Is there any questions that come up that you can think of that we should address here, or no? We're good.
I can't think of anything offhand. That I would just reiterate that the feedback for the proposals did go out. So if by chance you did not receive feedback or feel like something is unclear, please reach out because we would like to get your trial 2 started if we're able to.
Right. Really quickly, just a reminder that the Trial 2 original research is super valuable to us. It provides ideas and different growing techniques for the NASA folks and for us as well. We often find experiments that come out through the original research become inspiration for future year experiments. So when you're proposing research, it's really great for us to be able to say, oh, we can point to a school and say this was the inspiration for next year's challenge, next year's original or prescribed research trial. So it's really important to us. And also the opportunity for your students to present their research, their original research to NASA administrators and scientists at our student research symposium. So if you are new to the program or if you're returning, this year's Student Research Symposium is going to be held on April 12th. We're going to have a live in-person opportunity for those who are able to come or those who are local to present their original research live here at Fairchild. And for those who are further away, we have an opportunity for it to be done virtually. And so in the morning will be the live and in person, and in the afternoon on that Saturday will be the virtual. We will send out details in our newsletter. You will know everything about it. I strongly encourage everyone to participate in the symposium. The opportunity for your kids to present their research to the NASA scientists is invaluable because not only are the NASA scientists listening and hearing and getting ideas from your students, they're also providing feedback and encouragement as well. So I really encourage you. We will have a registration coming available soon. We'll also publish all the dates in the next newsletter. It's also on our website. So please encourage your kids. It'll be a 5-minute presentation with a limited number of slides. And it's either in person or virtual. Are there any questions about that? We will provide some templates, I believe. We have provided some templates of what and some previous presentations for your students to see so they can understand how to present their research. And there'll be a template and a lot of information that we will share with you to be able to do that as well. Our next chat with the scientists will include details. I encourage you to have your students join. Joya, Dr. Massa, Trent Smith, and some others will be on to let you know what they're looking for when we have our presentations. What are they looking for? What are interesting things that catch their attention when your students are presenting? So that will be our next chat with a scientist coming out in February. Anything anybody else wants to add? One of the things that's super important, and I just didn't give anybody time to answer that question, but one of the things that's really important is that we get feedback on our work that we do. And that's to support our applications to NASA. That's to support our funding from other institutions and organizations, and also for us to be able to determine what is working and what may not be working, or where we have challenges with that we need to address. So I'm going to ask that everyone who's participating today take 5 minutes to click on the link that Daniel had put into the chat to provide us with survey feedback. This will be going forward. You will be asked to do this at every one of the events or the chats with the scientists, because we really want to understand and really learn from your insight about the work that we're doing. So the survey link is in the chat. I want to thank Luke for taking the time out today. Luke, thanks so much for joining us today and sharing your knowledge and expertise about this, and really providing us with information to better do our work. So
Absolute pleasure. And yeah, really excited to see where we can take this now as well.
With that, I want to thank everybody for their time. All right. We got done early. Carl, did you want to add something?
No, just thank you, and thanks so much, Luke, for joining from Australia. That's really, not necessarily the most convenient time, but I'm glad you could do it.
It's great. We've got some Growing Beyond Earth people now set up in Australia. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna hold down the fort here
Yes,
in
yes,
Melbourne.
30 new schools coming online very soon in Australia.
Yeah,
Perfect.
fantastic.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. We will see you next month.